Samaras, one of the smartest blokes in and around politics. He's very generous with his time. He runs the Redbridge organisation. They do their polling. A reminder, by the way, the Sky News Pulse, another insight into what is happening when it comes to One Nation and the Coalition, will be revealed 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. That's 9 p.m. for all the MPs watching in Canberra, or plenty of people watching us in Queensland in One Nation world as well. That's, of course, at 8 o'clock. He runs the Redbridge poll. That comes out in the Australian Financial Review. Lovely to see you as always, mate. Now, let's jump over all the obvious questions, because the people who watch shows like this, they've heard them all before, baby. Now, let's get to something in the Newspoll that was fascinating to see was they couldn't come up with a 2PP because there is essentially no record of what the quote-unquote new One Nation voter is going to do with their preferences. I showed before that Anthony Green had done the work to show that it was, 88% of Greens voters go to Labor, about 70-something% from One Nation go to Libs. But that's when One Nation's 6%, not the other way around, where it's coalition support that ends up going to One Nation. Give me an insight into what is the great unknown and very dark soup at the moment of what a new One Nation voter wants to do with their preferences, Cos?
Yeah, so the question we need to ask is, let's say, for example, if One Nation is standing in a seat where it's actually leading in the primary vote, what do Liberal Party preferences do? Right? So
yes,
I suspect that they will flow pretty strongly to One Nation in regional electorates, and then that flow will weaken as we go towards big cities. Flip that around. If One Nation's running third in urban electorates, which it's standing, and it will probably cannibalise some of the Liberal vote, we have a fair idea. So at the last federal election, the preference flow from One Nation was higher than normal to the coalition. I expect that to be maintained, particularly in some states. So it really depends what contest we're looking at. And Newspoll is right and correct in not allocating a two-party preferred. We going forward will probably do the same, but we will ask Australians how they're going to preference. So, for example, we'll ask the Liberal Party supporters who they're going to preference, and that way we can actually throw a two-party preferred.
Now, can I ask, again, on the other side of things, Newspoll, and again, everyone's poll is showing the same, which is that if Labor's support is 3 points down from the election, still because of that preference flow, they get everything they got at the last election, potentially even a little bit more because of essentially that cancelling out the factor that is going to happen in and around some of the closer to the urban Liberals.
Yes.
But the 3% that has fallen off Labor, is it fair to say that that has run to One Nation, or is that splitting to the Greens, off to the Teal, off to the... What is their version? Yeah. If we were looking at an example of Labor protest, where is that going, if it's going anywhere at all?
Yeah, so it's in two buckets. At the moment, it's about 33, 34, roughly what they ended up on election night. But there is still some disquiet within Labor's base. And so it will be in two buckets. In the urban settings, in big cities, it will break into Greens, independents, minor parties. And in the bush, there is a Labor vote out there. I think that's where you will see Labor votes go to One Nation. And that's, again, it's going to help One Nation in contest versus the National Party, because the sort of seats I'm talking about, Labor runs third anyway. So... But this is where Labor's primary vote has been on a decline now for some years, and it's exponentially now plummeting to the ground. And I suspect that that's where we'll see Labor votes actually go to One Nation, and that is in electorates, which Labor actually does.
Last question, and I want to point everyone to the Curtain Cast, which is where you get into much more detail in your podcast. It mightn't be great listening for centre-right people on all elements, but certainly Cos is there when it comes to the data, right? It is obviously of Labor traditions named after John Curtin, of course. The Curtain Cast, go and find it on your podcast. Last question here. Is there anything that people are missing in the polls by just constantly looking at exclusively, essentially, any poll, One Nation, that's it? Is there anything people are missing and you want to cue in the smart people watching us now to go and look for something that's slightly to the left or slightly to the right of it to actually get a better idea of which way the windsock's going?
Look, I would just get people to go and look at the sort of pain that regional Australians are feeling right now. and have been feeling for 10 years. Yeah, and I mentioned this in the podcast that in regional Australia, the out-of-pocket expenses for surgeries are off the charts, and the number of regional Australians who skip medical treatment because they can't afford it is double that of people in urban settings. And then when we go into Gen X, which is of course this group we've been talking about for some time, they are in excess of 60%, in some places 70%. The pain these Australians are feeling is intense. And if people really want to know whether this is protest or power, go and have a look at the data in terms of lived experience and quality of life of a lot of these regional Australians.
100%. Hence why I said at the start of the show, aged care is one of those issues that is going to help unlock this group of people who clearly quite fluid and living life under a tremendous pressure at the moment. Of course, yourself, myself, Peter Credlin, all in that zone, and it's why we enjoy talking to you so often, mate.